Alright, good day music world. The music world according to the Finschise is back on YouTube after a short delay. This is the first of my new format of genre-based episodes, and it's Alternative Wednesday here. So I'm going to start by talking today about an old school alternative rock album from the 80s.
Jane says, I'm done with Sergio. You treat me like a rag doll.
Now, the majority of music made in the 80s was hair metal and new wave music. Now, while all that's going on the radio, that's fine and good from time to time, but Jane's Addiction came out with this album, Nothing's Shocking, and it's one of my all-time favorite alternative rock albums. Jane's Addiction is one of my all-time favorite alternative rock bands. Now, when you look at everything that was going on in the 80s with the hair metal and it was, some of it's alright, I guess, but most of it is just over-the-top, nonsensical, and really just silly. And Jane's Addiction makes this dark, twisted, sex-infused alternative rock album that still probably could have been made in the early 90s and fit right in with the grunge movement, but it's just, it's very different from everything that was going on in the 80s. You know, alternative rock was alive in the 80s with groups like REM and stuff like that, but I don't know, Nothing Shocking to me really was one of the first, like, real heavy of the alternative rock albums. You know, there's some classic alternative jams on there, you know, Mountain Song and Ocean Size are on there, as well as, like, some almost, like, jam rockish alternative songs that clock in at 7 or 8 minutes, and then there's some funk songs, more funk-oriented alternative rock songs that Jane's Addiction had become famous for later on in their career, like Idiot's Rule and stuff like that. And at the same time, it has Jane Says on it, which is just one of my all-time favorite songs. It's beautiful, an acoustic rock song, almost a ballad, absolutely gorgeous. So overall, it's really worth a listen, guys. Alright, so maybe a little over a year ago, this album came out. It's the debut album by this band, Cage the Elephant. I heard the song Ain't No Rest for the Wicked. You know, I'd heard it before from time to time, and I heard it on that freaking commercial for the game Borderlands, and I loved the game, so I liked it. I actually downloaded the song originally because of the game, but I eventually checked out the whole album, and I was very, very impressed by the album. The band on the album had this distinctive sound that was so unlike everything else that was going on right now. They managed to fuse alternative rock and rap and funk and even like almost like a little country, kind of alternative country in some places, as well as these like heavily politically charged lyrics, and you know, and not to mention at the same time it was just fun music. So, you know, I would absolutely say to check out their debut album, and it's a real shame because they recently came out with their second album, Thank You, Happy Birthday, I think it's called, but that was just awful. It was awful from start to finish, and one of the biggest disappointments I'd ever had in my life music-wise, because this first album for quite some time was on repeat on my Zune playlists and iTunes playlists, and I love that first album. So if you're looking for just a fun, very, very different alternative rock album that's of the newer time period, I would say to check this out, guys. Alright, so I actually enjoy the concept of a showdown on my show, so I'm going to keep it. And today we're going to talk about a showdown between two albums by alternative rock legends Radiohead.
The words are coming out, oh, and where are you now? When I need you, alone on an airplane.
Now, The Bends was the first, in my opinion, the first real Radiohead album. You know, Pablo Honey, when that came out, you know, it had Creep on it, but the album, all in all, is really not that good and flawed in so many ways that I don't even look at that as really an album. On the other hand, The Bends is really a phenomenal album, and I'd say it's one of Radiohead's heavier albums, actually, when you think about it. It's early in the career of Radiohead still, before they really got a lot of steam going, so I like it in that respect. And one thing I really enjoy about the album is that all of Radiohead's later work, you know, there are concepts in there and lyrics that are masterful when you think about them, but at the same time are very tough to understand. And if you listen to them for the first time, you know, if you're a first-time listener to some of the later Radiohead stuff, the chances are is you're not going to get it. Radiohead's The Bends is very straightforward and just more heavy, and I like it a lot. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people just skip to their later albums, but I think that The Bends is totally worth listening still. Now, OK Computer came directly after that, I believe. And OK Computer, since its release, has been talked about by just about every music critic known to man. It was ranked like one of the greatest rock albums of the 90s, and you know, it's a masterpiece. It's a real masterpiece when you listen to it. I'm not gonna rain down on OK Computer's parade, because you know it does deserve a lot of the hype that it's gotten. However, I feel that The Bends is much more listener-friendly. And OK Computer, as great as it is, you know, that was my first Radiohead album. That's the first time I actually ever listened to the band, but that almost ruined my experience for quite some time, because I didn't understand a lot that was going on in the album. So, OK Computer, I would say overall, is the better album. But I would say that The Bends, if you're looking for a start to Radiohead, that you should start with The Bends, or maybe another album besides OK Computer. So as I just said, you know, I believe that OK Computer really is the better album, but I'm telling you right now that you might not understand it if you're new to the band. Now, I've always been a fan of the early 90s grunge era of rock music, you know, ever since I got into music, and ever since I did, probably one of my favorite bands has been the Smashing Pumpkins, at least their first two albums, Siamese Dream and Gish. Now, when they dropped Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, it was a double album, it was supposed to be this epic masterpiece, you know, it was supposed to have all these crazy ideas on it, and the fact of the matter is, I don't think it adds up. The absolute genius behind Siamese Dream and Gish is just how simplistic it is. You know, on Gish and Siamese Dream, they wrote just songs that everybody could understand and everybody can relate to. And that was what I thought was genius. You know, they weren't going out of their way to blow us with long journeys of rock music and stuff like that. They just wrote music just so that people would understand what they were talking about. On Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, they throw all this away. Now, there are some classic Smashing Pumpkins tunes on there, I'm not gonna lie, you know, I think Jelly Belly is a great song, and, you know, Bullet with Butterfly Wings is probably one of their most well-known songs, and Tonight Tonight, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the most beautiful rock songs ever made. But then, for the most part, I would say that disc 1 you could enjoy to some extent, but then when you get to the second disc of the album, and there's 9-10-minute songs, and it's just where is it all going? You know, Billy Corgan is one of the great lyricists of hard rock, and I don't know, he must have gotten a lot of an ego writing this album, and you know, it definitely shows, because there are these 9-minute rock epics that don't go anywhere, that are just not very good at all. And you know, I find it hard to sit through the second half of that album. That's the reality of it. So, my thoughts, stick to the first two Smashing Pumpkins records, because they're both so awesome in every way. And you know, there are a couple of good songs on Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, but overall, doesn't add up, sorry. Alright guys, so tune in for Friday's punk episode of the Music World According to the Finschise. Be sure to check out my channel, check out all the playlists on my channel where I have all these videos of the music I talk about. Check out my regular blog, follow me on Twitter, and tell me what you think, guys. Alright? Take care.